Nearly all the energy that drives Earth's variable weather and climate comes from the sun. If the sun were turned off, global winds and ocean currents would quickly cease. Yet as long as the sun shines, the winds will blow and weather will persist. As you will see, the variations in the solar heating are caused by the motions of the Earth relative to the sun, and by the variations in Earth's land sea surface. The two principal motions of Earth are rotation, the spinning about its axis that produces the daily cycle of daylight and darkness. The line separating the dark half of the Earth from the lighted half is called the circle of illumination, and revolution, the movement in its orbit around the sun. Earth closer to the sun is known as perihelion, and Earth farther away from the sun is aphelion. The seasons are caused by changes in the angle at which the sun's rays strike the surface and the changes in the length of daylight at each latitude. These seasonal changes are the result of the tilt of the Earth's axis as it revolves around the sun. The seasons are caused by changes in the angle at which the sun's rays strike the surface and the changes in the length of daylight at each latitude. These seasonal changes are the result of the tilt of the Earth's axis as it revolves around the sun. Earth's axis is not perpendicular to the plane of its orbit around the sun. Instead, it is tilted 23.5 degrees from the perpendicular. This is called the inclination of the axis. If the axis were not inclined, Earth would lack seasons. On June 21 or 22, Earth is in a position such that the north end of its axis is tilted 23.5 degrees towards the sun. At this time, the vertical rays of the sun strike 23.5 degree north latitude, a latitude known as the Tropic of Cancer. For people in the northern hemisphere, June 21 or 22 is known as the summer solstice, the first official day of summer. During June solstice, it is summer time in the UK, the USA, Canada, Russia, India, and China. It is the longest day of the year. On about December 21 or 22, Earth is in the opposite position, with the sun's vertical rays striking at 23.5 degrees south latitude. This parallel is known as the Tropic of Capricorn. For those in the northern hemisphere, December 21 and 22 is the winter solstice, and it is the shortest day of the year. Midway between the solstices are the equinoxes. September 22 or 23 is the date of the autumnal or fall equinox in the northern hemisphere. And March 21 or 22 is the date of the spring equinox. On these dates, the vertical rays of the sun strike the equator because Earth is in such a position in its orbit that the axis is tilted neither toward nor away from the sun. During an equinox, or also known as equal night, the length of the daylight is 12 hours everywhere on Earth, because the circle of illumination passes directly through the poles, dividing the latitudes in half. All places at the same latitude have identical sun angles and lengths of daylight. If the Earth-Sun relationships just described were the only controls of temperature, we would expect these places to have identical temperatures as well. Obviously, this is not the case. There are also other factors that influence temperature.